What's up, guys? It's Ben from Rocky Mountain Anglers. Today I'm going to be tying for you the Walt's worm and the sexy Waltz. They're two of my favorite nymph patterns for all around the U.S. The Walt's worm was developed in Pennsylvania by Walt Young and Altoona. Super great pattern. Once again, like I think a lot of people, it's a go-to. The sexy Waltz is a variation of that, where basically we're adding some flash, some hot collars. That was developed by Lauren Williams in New York State. I highly recommend giving them a try. They're super fun and you'll have a good time. Thanks. So we're just going to jump right into it. So for our hook, we're going to be using a Hannock H400BL Jig Classic in a size 10. So that's what we got for the hook today. For our bead, we're using a slotted tungsten bead in 3.3 millimeter. This is from Umpqua. And then for our thread, we're going to be using Vivus 16-aught, just keeping it super simple, super thin. Sweet. So what we're going to do is we're going to be starting our thread right behind the bead here. We're just going to wrap back all the way to the bend in our hook. Sweet. And then we can pop off that extra thread. Now for our dubbing today, we're just using, this is Hairline squirrel dubbing in brown olive color. So that's what it looks like there. And kind of with Walt's worm and with dubbing in general, less is more. So we're just going to take a really, really small fine pinch to get us started. And we're going to dub that directly on the thread. You can use dubbing wax or something like that if you like. Personally, I don't. We're going to slide that dubbing noodle right up to our hook. And we want that dubbing noodle to get progressively larger as we get closer to the nozzle of our bobbin. Our end goal is to have a nice cone-shaped fly. Picture a caddis casing. That's ultimately what we want it to look like. And I'm using olive dubbing today. You can use natural hare's ear color. You can use tan. You can use brown. Kind of any natural, like earthier tone works. So now that I have my dubbing noodle on, you can see it gets progressively larger as it gets closer to the nozzle. I'm just going to slowly, carefully wrap that up my hook. We want it to be just a little bit thicker than the hook at the bend there, and to slightly taper as I go up, as I mentioned. I'm going to do a couple extra wraps behind the bead to get that thread seated in there. Believe it or not, that's pretty much the fly. I'm just going to hit it with a quick whip finish. Some people will put like a tippet or a thin wire ribbing just so that dubbing kind of stays together. I personally haven't had an issue with my dubbing coming off too much. And I'm just going to trim some of these extra like unruly fibers here. Sweet. And believe it or not, that's the Walt's worm. For me, it's been like very, very go-to confidence pattern, and it's one of my favorite bugs. Every river I fish for trout that I've caught a trout in, I've definitely caught one on a Walt's worm. So I'm just going to be tying another variation here of the Walt's worm. This is the sexy Waltz. Lauren Williams up in New York developed it. Super fun pattern. One of my favorites as well. Just adding a little bit of spice basically to the Walt's worm. We're using the same hook, so the Hannock 400, still same hook, same size bead. We'll just jump right into it. One of our major differences here, though, we're using UTC 70 in fluorescent pink. So once again, just going to start my thread and wrap back, get that nice thread layer. Pop that off. There's an additional step here where we're going to be throwing in some pearl tinsel. This is in the small size. For me, personally, I like the small size. This is a bigger hook. You could probably go up to medium tinsel if you'd like. but I'm just going to cut a strip maybe 6 inches long off the spool here. And so I'm going to leave a little bit protruding from my fingers there, but what I want to do is keep it on the near side of the hook, lean it at a 45 degree, and I'm going to do a little bit of a looser wrap here just to kind of collect that, and I'll cinch down. Now that I have that tight up against the hook, I can continue wrapping all the way up to our bead. Kind of add a little thread dam there behind the bead, and then I'm going to wrap one back again. We're going to roll with that same olive dubbing as we did on the waltz worm. And just a reminder, less is more. Same kind of thing, we want our dubbing noodle to be progressively bigger as it gets closer to the nozzle. If you'd like, some people do like to keep it level the whole way. They just got to add more. That's, definitely not wrong. And I'm just going to do some nice touching wraps with this dubbing up the hook. Looks like I got to add a little more here. I'm trying to get it roughly as thick as the bead, right behind the bead. Sweet. So we got that nice taper cone shape. Going to add a little bit more thread behind the bead there. Now I'm going to take my tinsel or flash taboo, whatever you prefer to use, and I'm going to wrap this in open wraps up the hook shank. So now we get something that looks like that. We're going to tie it off, get that spiral running up the cone. Trim it off, give it a whip finish, and once again, it's super simple. There's that extra step in there, a little bit brighter or flashier to help it set itself apart from whatever else might be in your rivers, but super simple and one of my favorite go-tos. Thanks for watching.